Hi guys, I'm back. Slightly longer break this time, but I've genuinely been trying to push out this review for the past 1 week. It just kept on getting delayed for some reason. Actually, I was just not finding enough time to properly sit and talk about this book. Hello. Yeah. So, okay. The point with this review is that it's very special to me. Not because the book is very close to my heart or I absolutely love it, but mainly because of the insane popularity that this book has. It is literally one of the most talked about books of recent times. Someone who has never read a book in their lives would have also heard about It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I think I read this book around 2 years back, and since then there have been a lot of times that I've wanted to talk about this book, but I just kept on delaying it for some reason. But then the movie released, and it also got so much limelight for so many reasons. Then I had to talk about this book. I personally haven't seen the film, mainly because of two reasons. Firstly, I wasn't a really big fan of the book in the first place, so I did not really feel like going out to the theatre and have that movie experience. And secondly, the film does not have a lot of nice reviews going for it. And quite frankly, I do agree with some of the criticism that the film has been facing, just from the initial looks that I have of the film and the trailer. Firstly, as much as I love Blake Lively, I do adore her. I'm a big Gossip Girl fan. I don't think that age-appropriate casting was done for this film at all, especially for Lillian Atlas. Ryle was still somewhere there. Justin Baldoni does look great as Ryle. So what happens is, the difference between films and books is, when you're watching a film, it is all out there on the big screen in front of you to see and grasp. There is very little imaginative power and creativity that you get as viewers when you're watching a film. So if I see a Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man on the screen, I see him, I love him, and I accept him. It will be very difficult for me to accept anyone else in the role of Iron Man. But when I'm reading a book, I have a lot of creative space and a lot of imaginative power to imagine the characters as my own. I can want them to be whoever I want. So if I read about Harry Potter, not just his physical characteristics, but also the softer tones to his personality, and then I see someone on the big screen in front of me playing Harry Potter, I would very easily know whether that person on the screen matches my description and my idea of Harry Potter or not. It is very easy as book readers to do that. That is why there is a sense of responsibility that gets associated when you're making a film based on a book. One of the recent examples that I want to give where I felt that a film based on a book had really on point casting is Red, White and Royal Blue. I love that book, and I also really did like the film. It is available on Amazon Prime Video if anyone wants to check it out. I felt the casting, not just for the main characters Henry and Alex, but for the entirety of the supporting cast, was really on point. And that is how it should be done. So I think I have talked enough about the casting of this film, and I should move on. Another thing that did not sit right with me regarding the film was the wardrobe of Blake in the movie. The messy and chaotic vibe that she's giving with her clothes is not something that I associated with Lily at all while I was reading the film. And I mean, the clothes are just in general also absurd and weird. Why would you dress anyone up like that? But yeah, I do not like these points. So haven't seen the film, not going to, will probably catch it up on OTT when it comes, and then also probably talk about the film a bit. But right now, today, I just want to talk about the book and my thoughts on it, because I have a lot of thoughts on the book. As I said, I read this book about 2 years ago, so I did not really remember much about it. So I picked it up again this past 1 week and read it whole again. And well, I don't know. I don't think that I have ever been this conflicted about my feelings regarding a book. This book did get me emotional, but the amount of times that I've wanted to facepalm myself while reading this book, thinking that what the hell is going on, is insane. This is a book that I really wanted to love, but I could not. I just could not bring myself to love this book fully. This was a book that was a heavy and emotional read, while also talking about a very important and worthwhile message. At least that is what it intended to do. Whether it was something that it was able to accomplish or not is something that we will soon discover in this video. Quick disclaimer, this is not a typical review or recommendation. I'm going to be doing a full deep dive into the book and the various aspects of the story. So it's going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. And if you haven't read the book yet, you don't want any spoilers, you can skip this video for now. So the book introduces us to Lily Blossom Bloom. Yes, that's an actual name. It should actually be a tongue twister. I had to reshoot this video 5 times to be able to say this correctly. Lily is a 23-year-old recent graduate who has moved to Boston to fulfill her lifelong dream of opening a flower shop. In the first scene, she's sitting on the ledge of a rooftop in one of the apartment buildings in Boston. She's thinking about death, but not her own. Her father passed away recently, and she gave what she thinks is one of the most epic eulogies ever. She had to list down 5 great things about her father, but she went to the podium and stood silently on it for 2 minutes straight, implying that she had nothing great to say about him. Lily had a troubled childhood. Her father was extremely abusive to her mother and she hated him. She also resented her mother for not being able to leave her father. As Lily is engulfed with all these thoughts about life, death, and her childhood, her alone time on the roof is interrupted by someone shoving the door very hard. A man enters the scene and starts kicking a chair violently. He is obviously not aware of someone else being on the roof with him and goes on to light a joint. When he finally takes notice of her, he commands her to get down from the roof. It is literally one of the first few things he says to her. I feel his voice in my stomach. That's not good. Voices should stop at the ears. But sometimes, not very often at all, actually, a voice will penetrate past my ears and reverberate straight down through my body. He has one of those voices. Deep, confident, and a little bit like butter. This guy is beautiful, well manicured, smells like money, looks to be several years older than me. His eyes crinkle in the corners as they follow me, and his lips seem to frown, even when they aren't. When I reach the side of the building that overlooks the street, I lean forward and stare down at the cars below, trying not to appear impressed by him. I can tell by his haircut alone that he is the kind of man people are easily impressed by, and I refuse to feed into his ego. Not that he's done anything to make me think he even has one, but he's wearing a casual Burberry shirt, and I'm not sure I have ever been on the radar of someone who could casually afford one. Now, this clearly shows how enamored and impressed Lily is by him in the first scene itself. But that is not how I feel about him at all. Even before the tension in the relationship starts, even before their relationship starts, I don't like him at all. From this scene itself. He's just casually throwing his weight around, being arrogant and commanding Lily to do things, having just met her. Now, of course, two strangers alone at night on a rooftop, they clearly find each other attractive. They start to have some conversation, they flirt a little, discuss about some deeper things in life, example, their childhoods, their dreams, ambitions, etc., etc. But as they're discussing other relationships, he tells Lily, he means Ryle here, I haven't told his name yet. We have had so much conversation about him. But Ryle tells Lily that he's just into casual relationships, and if she were into one night stands, he would take her to her room downstairs right now. Lily declines his offer by saying that she only wants serious committed relationships. He then goes on to get physically intimate with her, casually teasing, but yes, physically intimate, right after she has clearly declined his offer. I mean, this is literally the point where you slap the guy and run. And then Ryle gets a phone call, an emergency from the hospital. He has to rush there. And before going, this is what he does. He considers me for a moment and then holds up a finger. Don't move, he says, reaching for his phone again. He walks closer and holds it up as if he's about to snap a picture of me. I almost object, but I don't even know why. I'm fully clothed. It just doesn't feel that way for some reason. He snaps a picture of me lying in the lounge chair, my arms relaxed above my head. I have no idea what he plans to do with that picture, but I like that he took it. I like that he had the urge to remember what I look like, even though he knows he'll never see me again. I have absolutely no idea why people consider this as flirting, romantic, steamy, hot, or whatever. This is clearly very, very problematic and creepy and disgusting. You have just met a guy who has told you on his first meeting that he's just into casual relationships. When you decline his offer, he goes on to get a little bit physically intimate with you. He starts touching you without your consent. And then while he's going away, he takes a picture of you without your consent. The book hasn't even started yet, and this guy has clearly very much pissed me off. But anyway, can't do anything about it. Giving it a little benefit of doubt, we move on. Time goes on, they don't meet for a while. Lily finally sets up her flower shop. And the first day Lily is inside her flower shop setting it up, a woman enters. Her name is Elisa. Elisa is super rich, but she's equally bored. So she shows interest in working for Lily. As they're setting up this flower shop, Lily sprains her ankle and Elisa calls her husband and brother for help. It turns out that Elisa's husband is Ryle. Sorry, not her husband, her brother. Elisa's brother is Ryle. By the way, it would have been a really interesting story if Ryle was her husband and not her brother. That is a story I would have been interested to read in. This one, not so much. I just can't seem to stand this guy, and Lily just can't seem to get enough of him. I mean, I just can't. If I had $1 for every time Ryle tells Lily he wants to fuck her within 2 minutes of meeting her somewhere. At one instance, he literally goes to her house unannounced and literally begs her on his knees to have a physical relationship with him. Can this book get any weirder? This is not how a love story is supposed to start. I simply do not buy this romantic relationship. But sadly, this is a world where big red walking flags like Ryle get away with anything they want to do. And as you might have very well guessed, despite the selfish, arrogant asshole Ryle is, who has no concept of Lily's personal choice or her private space, they start dating. All because this emotionally unavailable man-child finally realizes he has feelings for Lily. I cannot imagine why an independent, smart, and emotionally mature girl like Lily would ever fall for a douchebag like Ryle. She's literally swooning over him in the first half of the book after he clearly repeatedly tells her that he does not want to date her. Their love story is absolutely cringy and absurd and stupid to me. I'm not even invested in this relationship, which is supposed to form the pretext of the rest of the book. Since the start of the book, we're also introduced to Lily's first love, Atlas Corrigan, through the diary entries Lily used to write as a child, when she was 15 or 16. Atlas used to live in an abandoned shed across Lily's house. They went to the same school where everyone used to make fun of Atlas for smelling because he clearly did not have electricity or water. His parents were divorced and his stepfather, who did not like Atlas, had thrown him out of the house. Atlas and Lily slowly formed a connection. She really cared for him and sympathized with him. She used to give him food and clothes and also let him shower in her house when her parents weren't there. They really bonded on the hardships thrown at them in life at such a young age, and slowly and steadily they fell in love. However, Atlas had to move away for some reasons, and since then, Lily hasn't been in contact with him. In the present day, Lily and Ryle are in a relationship. No, wait, they are giving it a try. Yeah, because Lily is not sure whether to trust Ryle on a serious commitment or not. Exactly the kind of guy you should look for when wanting a serious relationship. But, plot twist, Atlas enters back into Lily's life. She meets him at a restaurant where she, Ryle, and her mother have gone out to eat. And Atlas is the head chef of that restaurant. See, I was genuinely invested in Lily and Atlas's story. There was so much passion and innocence and something so lovely about those two kids, both weighed down by their individual traumas and situations in life that they shouldn't have to deal with at this age, coming together and fighting against the world. Their love story was genuinely endearing to me. As you read exactly half of the book, Lily starts to see a darker side to Ryle. He is physically abusive to her. And honestly, that is when the book actually starts for me. Because for me, this book was about cycles of abuse, generational trauma, and toxic relationships. The first time Ryle hits Lily and says sorry to her, she doesn't hear him. Instead, she hears her father apologizing to her mother. This single scene itself reflects so nicely about how 15 seconds can completely change how you feel about a person. How the actions of someone else can have a cascading effect on your life. Even after the shock and anger that goes through Lily, the very next second she is thinking about him. She forgives him. She makes excuses for him. The book reflects really nicely upon how our childhood experiences and deepest fears shape us. And how does being in a toxic relationship feel like? It is a book about the ordeal of knowing what's best for you while also loving the person in front of you. The ordeal of knowing you deserve better while also sympathizing with the person and believing your love can change them. As the book goes on, Lily and Ryle end up getting married, even after all the abuse he inflicts on her. And with each passing page, I hate Ryle more and more. He repeatedly hurts Lily and then also goes on to gaslight and manipulate her. I have never wanted to punch a book character as much as I wanted to punch Ryle. We ultimately also get to know the reason behind this aggressive rage blackouts that Ryle has. He was 6 years old when he accidentally shot and killed his older brother. This pushes Lily in a very complicated situation. She told herself that if he ever hurt her again, she would simply leave. She would refuse to be like her mother. However, when actually confronted with the situation her mother was in, she realizes it's not that simple. She is very hurt by his actions and at the same time feels a lot of pain for Ryle. Now here, I get what Colleen Hoover is trying to do. She's trying to show us the point of view of a victim, the dichotomy of being in love with the person who has hurt you. And she's also trying to make the point of how not everything is black and white in life. Or as she famously tries to say again and again through this book, there is no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. But even though I understand that, even though I do feel Ryle's pain and sympathize with him, I don't see how they should still be together. Even if his aggression stems from his childhood trauma, it's not Lily's burden to take. It shouldn't be her responsibility. Ryle is an educated grown-up man. He has the awareness and the resources to go and seek help. Now, I do recognize and understand that everyone's experiences and takes on this would be very, very personal. This topic is extremely sensitive, and for someone who has never encountered such a situation in her life, my take on this would be very different and limited in a way to my view of the world. And I do not wish to disregard or disrespect anyone's personal experiences. But if I simply talk about in the context of this book and this story, and a little bit in general about how I feel about this topic, I genuinely don't think abuse is a relationship problem that two people work on and move on. It is the end point. Not every behavior deserves a second chance in life. And that does become clear as the story progresses. Ryle hurts her yet another time, and this time he goes really far. A point from where even Lily is not able to turn back to. A point where she finally decides to stop making excuses for him and take a stand for herself. From this point on, I do actually love the book. I love how Lily stands up for herself, how she recognizes and gathers the courage to finally break free from the cycle of abuse. However, I do feel that in some places, this whole process of Lily finally realizing that she deserves better than this and decides to break away from Ryle, the treatment of it was a bit surface level. It wasn't explored as much as it could have been. There are truly moments that touch your heart, that make you cry. Especially a conversation Lily has with her mother about the shared experiences they both went through. But those moments are far and few in between. Now, more issues incoming that I have with this book. Coming on to Atlas's character, I have touched very little upon him in this video because his presence was genuinely very fleeting. According to me, he had very little character development and no layering whatsoever. Now, he's a very considerate, kind, and extremely nice person, and I do love him. But I just felt that there wasn't anything more to his character rather than being a homeless boy that Lily falls in love with. And I absolutely cannot understand the integration of his character into the present day story. What purpose did he solve by coming back? Like, I do understand that it gave way to the story because Ryle doubts Lily for having an affair with Atlas, which sort of ignites the problems further in their relationship. But that could have been easily done with something else as well. If anything, it took away and kind of undermined the journey that Lily took. The way she broke away from Ryle and stood up for herself. Because then the book suddenly became about Lily choosing between Ryle or Atlas. It suddenly became about this love triangle between the three of them, a narrative that just doesn't sit right with me. The book is still labeled and marketed as a romance novel, as a love triangle, which it clearly is not. For me, this book is through and through about Lily and her struggle with toxic relationships and cycles of abuse. Bringing back Atlas gave Lily support, which I agree with, but it also made it about Lily having to choose between Ryle and Atlas. And my problem is that a lot of women in real life do not have a choice or this support. It really took away the essence of the story. And the fact that an entire new book was written for Lily and Atlas's story is just beyond me. It Starts With Us is a really difficult book to get through to, because you know what's going to happen in the end. It literally seems like a fan fiction of It Ends With Us. Lily and Atlas do make a great couple, and I can probably also see them ultimately getting together. But the story that I would have loved to read was one where Atlas did not come back. Lily read the old letters still, and the love shared between her and Atlas does become a fuel to her courage. She does realizes by reading those letters that what true love actually feels like. And that kind of become a catalyst and support to her from her finally breaking away from Ryle. And probably a few years down the line, Lily and Atlas meet again. They bump into each other somewhere and strike a connection again. And then they start their love story. And then you write a book about that. I would have loved to read that book. But here, it just did not make sense. Another major issue is the epilogue for me. I was actually quite happy with how the book was ending, and I was like, okay, finally I got some redemption about the first half of the book. But the epilogue just did it away for me. The fact that Lily agrees to co-parent her daughter with Ryle is something that I don't understand at all. Well, I do not know the legalities of co-parenting. How does that work? And maybe it is mandatory by law for them to co-parent their daughter, but I don't know how Lily is okay with it. Ryle has his sudden rage blackouts. How can you trust him to be unattended with the child? What if he hurts their daughter? What if he hurts Lily in front of their daughter? I think it is also somewhere due to the fact that this story is inspired from Colleen Hoover's mother and father's real story. Her father was abusive to her mother, but Lily and her sisters shared a cordial and a nice relationship with their father. So maybe this was somewhere stemming from that. However, I still feel that when you're writing a book that is catering to a very large audience, millions and billions of people are going to read this book, there is a certain sense of responsibility that does get attached. And solely, if I only talk about in the context of this story, I don't think Ryle should be left unattended with their daughter. And I do feel that that is a plot mistake or a plot point that I did not really agree with. So, I have talked a lot about this book, really a lot. This was a full deep dive, but I also wanted to do it because I feel that there is so much discussion and discourse that always surrounds this book. Some people absolutely love it, others can't stand it, and I lie in between. I think I really loved the book for the themes it explored, for the intention that it had. I don't think that I have read a lot of books that deal with abuse, toxic relationships, generational trauma. That was something that was really, really refreshing and nice to read. The treatment is something that maybe could have been better, I feel, but I think that there is a lot of praise that should go to Colleen Hoover for having the courage to talk about these issues, especially something that reflects on her own personal life. In the end, I would just like to say that while this book had its flaws, a lot of flaws, I also do appreciate and applaud the important and worthwhile message that it wants to send.